Hey, you got a business? Got a Kickstarter? Perhaps you're in a band and you guys are wanting to promote an album or something. Tin Roof wants to work with you. You get a hold of us, let us know what you're looking for, and we will put together a affordable promotion package to help get the word out about your business through our channels. Come grow with us over here at Tin Roof Podcast. Ho, 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 who wouldn't know? All right. What is going on, guys? I am super excited about this. We are going to be watching A Christmas Carol, like doing a watch along. So I've got you, as long as you choose to listen, for the next hour and 38 minutes. So I'm really excited about doing this. This is going to be fun. So I'm going to give you a minute to queue up the Christmas Carol movie on your evil supervillain app. I'm not going to tell you which one, but I will tell you what Christmas Carol we're watching so you can find it. That would be the Jim Carrey version. So if you're familiar with that, that's how you're going to find it. They're really big in Florida, if you know what I'm saying, as far as the movie production goes, or the production company or whatever. I'm doing my best to avoid copyrights. I tested the sound before we got on this because I don't have a computer and headphone set up to where I can do a on the phone watch, or not on the phone, but on the computer watch or whatever. I don't have that kind of setup. Maybe one day, but this is gonna be a fun one to do. So you're gonna have to watch along while listening. Or you can just listen and, I'm going to make jokes. I'm going to give you facts. We're going to talk music randomly in between in boring spots. And we're going to have a good time. It's going to be like hanging out with your loser family member. So I hope you're looking forward to that. That being said, so glad you're here. Welcome back again. I'm glad that you guys listened and checked out the Demon and the Witch episode last week. It didn't quite go exactly the way I wanted it to, so we're gonna revisit Whitechapel again in the future because I really like the band. Yeah, and that whole day was crazy, and so trying to record 2 really heavy episodes was tough, but we got her dead, so I reckon we're gonna hit play on the old television here. All right, well, I'm using a PS4 for those of you that are watching the audio version over our video version over on YouTube. Good night. Okay, so that being said, we're feeling festive. Got a hot cocoa run shirt on that I was a part of. Got my super sweet black Santa hat, and I'm very excited about this. It's gonna be a good day. Let's dive in on this. Also, don't forget, as we're pressing play, so you're starting now. Next week, or not even next week, this Friday, we are going to be doing the Tin Roof Podcast Not So Special Christmas Special. Probably one of my favorite episodes to do for the year, and it's actually going to wrap up the year recording for me. I won't record until after the New Year's after this, and then so we got the shooting star firework thing over the castle right now, and we are getting ready to have the super awesome Christmas fanfare. Also, holiday drink, super important. Make sure you got your water like I do and some black coffee. I'm super excited about this. I've been wanting to do a watch along for a while. I think we'll eventually do one of a couple of just a couple of different movies or whatever. Or I want to even do some documentaries, but I haven't found any documentaries that are worth doing yet. I'm sure there's some outlaw country ones that I'll find that I'd be man, this is perfect. Maybe I can find one on David Allen Co. or something. Monsters of Moscow. Maybe we'll watch Monsters of Moscow and do this. I don't know. I got some ideas. But, alright, we're getting the book open. Marley was quite dead. Actually, I mixed up a couple lines there. It's actually Marley was dead to begin with, but Scrooge goes, quite dead. Is a doornail. But you're going to hear that in a minute. Again, I'm like the loser family member that you're watching a movie with that can quote everything. This might be... I love The Christmas Carol. Like, everything around it is so cool. So, it was written in... What year was it exactly written in? Let's see. That was one of the facts that I wanted to pull up for you guys, was when it was written. So, when was A Christmas Carol written? 1843. Okay, so... Oh, okay. So, he wrote it in the fall of 1843. It was published on December 19th, 1843. And then... How did I want to say this? He did a live production. Alright, so it came out December 19th. He did a live, like, reading, like a spoken word thing, I guess, and maybe even kind of acted a little bit from what I gather, of A Christmas Carol. A few days after Christmas. It was December 27th. So, Boxing Day is over and everything, is like being in London. It's a big deal. And so, like, the whole thing is, like, a thing. And it's kind of cool how it happens. And it's kind of cool, like, how it all came about. So, like, he was having financial trouble, so he wrote this book in like 6 weeks. And guys, like, 6 weeks to write a book is a challenge. I'm gonna do a few attempts to, like, hammer some stuff out this next year, because I've got a lot of projects that are close to being wrapped up, or not even close to being wrapped up, but I want to, like, smash them out. This year, like, 2025 is gonna be crazy, and I want to talk more about that whenever we get to the Not So Special Christmas special. And man, just, like, this guy's such a tightwad. Like, here he is in front of the carolers and, like, just scaring them. I don't know if it's just, like, an old man thing, like, where you're just, like, tired of everything or whatever. But it seemed like he was even, like, miserly at, like, a young age after, like, his time with Fezziwig. He just... greed took over. But, I mean, it's why we have such a great story in this. And it's so much fun. Yeah, the kids skitching behind the horse-drawn carriage. So cool. Delinquents. I don't know, my Scrooge Jim Carrey voice almost sounds more like Senator Palpatine. But, writing a book in 6 weeks, especially, like, that big, and it became a classic. Like, that's crazy awesome. He was facing, like, serious financial trouble, and so to be able to kind of turn it around. And the thing is like, authors don't make much, especially independent authors. It's been very difficult for me to, like, get my stuff out there, and I would love to do some, like, spoken word stuff and to, like, connect with people and whatnot, but it just hasn't happened. However, what has happened is, like, starting this podcast. Obviously the main focus is music, and we're going to tie music into this here in a little bit. I do love, like, the fanfare at the beginning of this, like, whenever, like, they're first showing the opening credits right before they start the actual story. And, like, these guys right here, like, starving, and then, like, fighting dogs over food. Tough times, man. Economic hardships for England at this time for quite a few people. You got the chimney sweeps up there. That's a cool view. I wonder why that one dude like dusted some of his stuff down the other chimney though. That was kind of interesting. Getting some fish. Ooh, look at them toasted nuts. Like, ooh, that should be something that we do soon. For one of my cooking videos. The old follow the pea trick. And he's bopping the one kid's face. Stick in a hoop. So the cool thing is like he wrote it on like super close on the timeline. So Marley passed in 1836, and he actually wrote it in 1843. So like it would have been close in time. And so let's see, because I think does he bring it to the present year? Because it's like 7 or 10 years, so it might even been a little futuristic. The ice crackling effect on the sign and like showing the decay of the sign is super cool. 7 Christmas Eves later. Okay, so he brings it up to 1843, which is kind of cool, because then it's like, oh wow, it's happening like in this time. And so like if you're sitting there reading it on Christmas, in 1843, you're like, it's almost like it's happening right now. There's been over 200 different versions of A Christmas Carol, including one, with Mickey in it, with the Muppets in it. Michael Caine was in that one, which, who doesn't love Michael Caine? Dude's pretty cool. One of the best Alfreds in Batman movies. There's like frost on the edges of the desk, and Scrooge has zero cares. And this guy, like, what a nephew, like, trying to, like, still keep the grouchy uncle involved. So, in the actual story, humbug is actually only said twice, but obviously it seems like he says it a whole lot more in the movies, and he might actually say it a whole lot more in the movies. We're already up to twice right here with this one guy, with his nephew. Okay? So is that one of the most like famous lines from this movie? Keep Christmas in your own way, and I'll keep it in mine. Like, is that one of the? It's got to be up there for like, because obviously Bah Humbug's number one. I can't think of another like line that would be second, except for like maybe what's coming up with it. Are there no workhouses? I definitely think the nephew does a great job of explaining like how awesome Christmas is from like a tradition and family like point of view, because it's such a fun time. It lifts spirits, and like especially like around this time, like talking about depression and stuff last week, it doesn't lift every spirit, unfortunately. Sometimes it makes people feel worse, which is awful, because like this is a time to be like stoked. Punk rock Christmas is a thing, or like punk rock Christmas songs, I guess is what I meant to say. Those are a thing, and you've got great movies and stuff, and it's such a fun time. The food, being with family, the anticipation. Even in my age, like I get excited for like, ooh, my wife, was, or whoever, but we'll use my wife in this example. My wife, put in a lot of thought on my gifts. I wonder what she got me, and then for me though, it's more so like excited nowadays to watch other people open gifts. Like, anticipation's fun and everything, it's a cool emotion, but to have put the thought in myself on a gift to give somebody and then be just like stoked beyond whatever, that's super cool. And so, like, yeah, I love it when a good gift lands for, like, from me to somebody else. And I've got some really cool things that I'm wanting to do for some friends and stuff. And, yeah, like, I'm just stoked because I'm in such a good place at the end of this year, whereas a couple years ago I was not in as good of a place. And so it makes me happy. And I love, like, the revolving door that all of a sudden Scrooge has, which I think that's where it would get me. Died on a Christmas Eve 7 years ago. Now get out of here, you peddlers. I mean, they got a good cause. They're trying to raise money for people who are not doing well, which we've already seen a couple of times in the very short few things. That business card looks way more modern day than what I feel like it should. I wonder, are we gonna? Let's do a dive in on business cards, like history of business cards, real quick. Okay, so 15th century in China, 17th century in England. So China was the first place to have business cards. How cool is that? And so, like, 15th century. So we're 21st century. So I gotta count backwards. Are we 21st or are we 22nd now? I guess it's still 21st, right? Or was 1900 might have been in the 21st century. So this is, no, that was 20th. So this is 21st. So was that 1400s? 1500s? Something like that? I think it'd be 1400s. That's crazy. And so 17th would put this, like, business cards are a new thing, essentially. Maybe they've been around, 100 years tops. So that's crazy to think. And so I want to see what was going on in England during the mid 1800s. So So here in the U.S. during the 1840s, we had Manifest Destiny going on. That whole concept was a thing. Mexican-American War, annexation of Texas, California Gold Rush, because you had, gold. So this movie, 1843. 5 years later, gold's discovered in California. Then we got the 49ers. So pretty crazy. Invention of the telegraph. Seneca Falls Convention for women, that was a pivotal moment for women's rights. Kind of a crazy time for presidents too, because you have John Tyler, James K. Polk, Zachary Taylor. There's a link for this one. I love how, like, Mary, his employer just was, or his employee just was, I can't think of his name. Bob Cratchit. There we go. Haha. I wanted to say something with a K, but I was like, no, I don't think that's the right word. But yeah, Bob Cratchit, like how just stoked he was, right there, like Christmas, woo! And I think we all are that way whenever we get off on Christmas Eve. I know I'm super excited because I'll be smoking a ham to do pulled ham, and I've got a really cool recipe that I'm gonna try with it, and then gonna be smoking some cookies. Oh yeah, that's going to be a thing. So what was happening in London in the 1840s? The Thames Tunnel opened in 1843. The penny post was implemented. That was in 1840. Rowland Hill introduced the penny post, which allowed anyone to send a letter anywhere in the UK for a penny. London to Birmingham Railway was built. The Derby Arboretum became England's first public park. Really? That happened in 1840. The Mines Act was passed. 1842 Mines Act prohibited women and boys under 10 from working underground in England. Wow, that is a pivotal moment there. Oh, yes, the super sweet door knocker. He's like, what is that? Like, what are you so freaked out about, dude? Just a door knocker. And then he's like, oh, maybe I was just seeing things. London's working population grew around this time period too, which would explain a lot of the key things that are being discussed in, the book and now the movies and whatnot for A Christmas Carol. So, in the time around 1871, so a little bit after this, like 30 years, you have a working population of about 200,000. By the time you get to 1911, it's 364,000. So 1843, I think we could drop it down to about 150,000, give or take. So maybe a little less of a drop, maybe 175. But gotta add in for births, I guess. If you're 71, so 30 years, so people born in 1843 becoming workers between 1840. That soup just does not look good. Like, this guy literally was just surviving and just focused on money, 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 money. Had that big old house to himself, and he just confines himself to one room. Look at that, like, furniture all covered up, like, nothing going on in there. Dude could be having super sweet parties, and just wasn't doing it. I gotta take that off for a minute, my head's itchy. Fireplace is incredibly clean, though, and that fire just, it's just a couple of logs. It just doesn't seem very big to me. He's cold, which I find interesting, but it also speaks a lot to the time. Like, they like, things were not as warm. I love the bells starting to ring on their own, essentially. And how often do you think those bells were actually, like, rang? Up to, like if you look at it from, like, the story aspect of it being, Scrooge's life, how often do you think he actually ever heard those bells ring? Probably never up to this point. And if they did ring, it was very seldom. Because he was a loner. Like, he had nobody. he had his money, and that was it at this point. Nobody's coming to visit. He, didn't invite anybody over. Very, very lonely life, which is, interesting in itself, because greed is a very wild thing. I like how they stress the anxiety of the moment too in this, where he's not sure what to do with his hands as he hears the noise of somebody coming up the stairs. There's so many fun things that have been done with this particular scene. I think in particular this one, there's a version that Tom Hardy did, where Andy Serkis is the ghost of Christmas, and he's all three. He's past, present, and future in that one, and it's really cool. Excuse me, how all that works. So Marley wants to give a chance to Scrooge. I kept wanting to say Jim Carrey, so it took me a minute to actually get it out. I'm a little sleepy this morning while I'm doing this, but the spectral chains and the weight is interesting. It's a very, very interesting concept, and so one of the cool things about when this book was written was those 6 weeks. And it's interesting because it's Scrooge can't see, or Marley can't see him. It's almost as if he's blind or something. And the thing that I wonder is did he, what did Marley... I wonder if we know that. We'll come back to my original thought, because I want to know if we know what Marley died of. Because it almost seems like obviously he's decayed up to this point, but he had that bandage around his head whenever he was being laid to rest. So maybe he had some sort of decaying disease. Yeah. This is a very real thing for the time period. Jacob and so this kind of explains a lot too, with the bandage around the head and everything, and when the jaw. Oh, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Spoiler alert, I didn't mean to do that. Here in just a couple of moments that his jaw is going to fall off. So a toothache that led to a fatal infection. So, and that was common back then. If you had a toothache and you didn't want to go get it taken care of, it even happens sometimes now. Story time. The big gap there in the front of my face, which actually surprisingly didn't show up very well on the camera. I'm kind of surprised. I am missing this tooth in particular. I'm missing several, but that one in particular, I had an abscess that was up under my nose, and they had to rake it all out and stuff. It was good times. Yeah, gross, but toothache. In the early 1840s, when the story takes place, a toothache could become deadly because antibiotics weren't available. Infected teeth were often pulled, but the remaining root or wound could easily get infected. We are, the time we live in is very, sterile compared to the past. Obviously, all the chemicals aren't great, but, some are definitely necessary. But there was also the cheapness thing involved here, because Since Marley and Scrooge were both notorious misers, it's likely they didn't spend money on dental care. Love this part. So then he just gotta get it all back together. The comedic relief right there, because like obviously it's like kids. And that's a huge thing, a chance of my procuring. So like he asked to like come back and do this for him. Like, let me go talk to my friend, please, so he doesn't end up here. And he even said earlier, or maybe it's coming up. I know it's obviously during this time period of the movie, but he's like, your chains are gonna be bigger and heavier and longer than mine. Your weight that you're going to carry is way worse. And I love like how the spectral stuff like actually like attaches to things in the room, because if you notice, it's up underneath the chair now. It spins him around. Like that's so clever. The spectral chair is cool, but like the stuff that people are weighed down by, and like how he sees them all, like how heavy, how effective is that? Like looking at all the different things is nuts. Yep, just go to bed. Oral cancer also could have been a thing for Marley. So if Marley was a smoker, which was common for men in Victorian England, he could have developed an oral cancer, which caused his jaw to deteriorate. I wonder, like, chewing's big here in America. I wonder if, like, dipping was big anywhere else. Was dipping a thing in Victorian Yeah, they did snuff, which a little bit up the nose with the tobacco. So that's interesting. Also, just does not seem fun, in my opinion. I'm not about any of that stuff. I love how the Christmas past is a candle. And the fact that Jim Carrey did so many voices for this movie is so cool, too. I think it's interesting how he asked if would you put it out with your own hands? the eccentric movings of the candle is interesting, but I guess it makes sense because like moving in the wind and whatnot of the house and everything to like give it that feel is pretty cool. The bestowment of being able to fly in your own dream. Okay, so was he sleeping with the shoes on? I mean, I guess you kind of would want to back then, because your feet would get so cold. Sleeping during the Victorian era is just wild in its own. Like, that time period, the things that like people had to go through. But then if you even go back like 1700s or even earlier than that, like the things that people had to do that we'd have like we're inconvenienced if it gets cold, and like these people like had to work to survive, and they had like good houses and everything else. Like Victorian era stuff is still around today, but I mean, like this. That life would have just been nuts. Just because of like they had way more convenience than what people had. So we're almost, let's see. I gotta do the math. We're 181 years separated from them, so almost 200 years separated from 1843. Which, yeah, makes sense. I just couldn't math at that moment. So, in 200 years, think about the technological advancements we've had. Think about 200 years back from, 1643. What was that like? Like, people were struggling here in America. Like trying to like keep colonies going, essentially, is where we were, because like we're not even in the Revolutionary War at that point. And so like just crazy times. Okay, so one thing that I wanted to look up was, also, this book was published 45 years before the Whitechapel murders done by Jack the Ripper. Kind of help give you like time periods of different things that were big over there across the pond. Like him staring out the window, like it's so sad. Like last kid to like he was gonna have to stay at the school. At the private school that he was sent to. That's one thing I really enjoy about the Tom Hardy version of A Christmas Carol. Was the depiction of the struggle here for Scrooge at this point. Okay, so same place. A few years later. His sweet sister, presumably where the nephew comes from. And you can see how much like that moment like warms Scrooge's heart, because like he's getting to go home. His little sister basically like stuck her neck out to ask, and it makes you wonder like what did the dad go through that made him so much kinder. And yeah, they just brought up the nephew, so that's something to think about. Scrooge's past with Christmas, like, I find so interesting. Fezziwigs. This was a cool time for him too, because like Fezziwig just seems like a baller. Like the dude just super cool guy. It seems to work for, but like look at how big his stuff is. And like what does that say? It's so cool to watch them like get the room ready, and now here's everybody hanging out, having a good old English hoedown. I just love how they like portrayed Ebenezer as like athletic for a chubby guy. I think he's wearing a powdered wig though. I don't think that's his actual hair. Super awesome acrobatics of why did the fiddler fall down? Such a happier time, obviously, in his life. First sign of love. The combination of like Scrooge face, like they did such a good job like putting Jim Carrey's facial like features in all the different characters that he played, but they also like keep them true to the character's face, like with the jawline and different things. And so like to see like the Scrooge, Jim Carrey mix there is very cool, because obviously like Carrey's chin is not as pointy as what it is here. The artwork that just goes into this movie, like obviously it's all like very much computer animated, but it's so good. It's the way this movie was done. It is definitely one of my favorites. And actually I wanted to do a Jim Carrey Christmas movie, but it wasn't this one. I wanted to do How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I'd have to rent it. I wasn't going to rent it. So the idea was I was going to do the original How the Grinch Stole Christmas with Earl Ravenscroft, and we were going to do How the Grinch Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey. And I had a lot of like really cool facts, because these are my two favorite ones. Well, two of my favorite ones. I've got a couple other big favorites too, so maybe we'll get into that. Obviously we still have plenty of time to get into things in this particular watch along, but we're not going to. I'll save that for the not so special Christmas special. So like my 5 Christmas movies or whatever, we'll do that then. However, we will continue on with the thought process that I was going down. So both of these are like some of my favorite movies. So whenever I couldn't do it the way I wanted to, I was like, well, what could I do? And I was like, oh, I could do the same with a Christmas movie, a Christmas Carol. And so I thought about watching the Mickey one too, but I think we're just gonna watch this one and enjoy it for what it is. This is so heartbreaking because, like, have I ever saw it release? But no, you're just greedy out here trying to, stack bands instead of worrying about meat. Oh, it's so sad. Ah. Man, some of that I had never caught before. So, like, it obviously, like, the greed always was there, but I didn't realize, like, she felt like she was only with him, or she felt like he was only with her for money at that point. That's so sad. And, like, that one's tearing him up because, like, he messed up big time. The facial changes is nuts. Like, all the different people in his life and everything else, and it's haunting him. And, like, what are you gonna do? And that cap is much bigger than the one that the candle was carrying earlier. And, like, the thing about that is like, the candle was being prophetic, was he not? With, would you put me out yourself? And now he's riding a candle cap to the moon. Scrooge flying in front of the moon is such a funny image. Ooh. So falling out of bed is like a legit like thing and does hurt. I actually had a brother who fell out of bed and broke his collarbone falling out of bed. So I definitely wouldn't recommend it. So within a year, A Christmas Carol had went through 13 printings and continues to be a robust seller, even 181 years later. Let's see. Some other cool facts about this. This is not the only Christmas-themed work by Charles Dickens, but this is the one that landed it. Like, nailed it. I love how shiny the room is. Like, almost like showing what it could look like if Scrooge were more merry at this time. And like the pile of food, like all the pumpkins and turkeys and all of it just looks so good. And just like how merry Christmas present is like super cool. And he's a giant. The wreath decoration and stuff is very interesting. Like I guess that would be tinsel or whatever. Like it's run around everywhere. Okay, so he's talking about the years. I've never understood that before. I had never realized that before. That's so interesting. Which makes me wonder. So, like, is he so robust here because like 1843 was a good year for England? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of struggle that is implied. 1843 was a part of time of great wealth and power for Britain. So obviously, like, it was during the Victorian era, so there's a lot of things that were good. I just didn't know how good, and so that kind of explains a lot, and like a lot of like poetic like metaphor and whatnot. I think those are the right words for this uh, that we see with Christmas present, to be exact. And so that's really cool. I didn't realize that he was. I never realized he was talking about the years. I just was thinking about it. The transparent floor is super cool because he's like, I don't know what to do. Going on a trip and never even left the floor. Indeed. And the chairs like moving as they like do this is super cool too. I reckon they had to clear the roofs off. Never even thought about that before. I guess they had to clear the roofs off to, one, get to the chimneys, but two, also to keep from like having cave-ins. That's something I never thought about. All the different people going to church. The top of the steeple is really cool looking there. I like the look of that cross. Looking out across the top of England like that's really cool too. They did a great job, like with the artwork on that as well. This movie's very well done, and I'm gonna probably speak highly of it the entire time and try to point out little different things as we go. The bakery. I just baked a cheesecake last night that's mint cookies and cream for a holiday party today, and I'm super excited about it. I hope it tastes good. And that's really interesting because, like, obviously, like, you know, nowadays, how often are we like, oh, a preacher's crooked, blah 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 blah, and all that, and so nothing's new under the sun, and this here definitely shows that because they're trying to blame it on like the oh, it was a hard year or whatever. So now they're like Christmas present just said, he's like, don't blame me. Blame these scammers, because not all, like, basically, to summarize, not all of us are doing, not everyone's bad, but there are some, and like they're the ones that need to be held accountable, not me, not whatever. Goose cooking on a fire. What a great, like, Christmas dinner. I like ham, but I want to, like, hopefully eventually get a goose and, like, have a goose for Christmas dinner. That would be awesome. I love to hunt, which we've discussed before, but I actually called in a couple of geese the other day. They just didn't commit to where I could actually shoot them. They passed by and gave me a look, but they didn't come into where I needed them to. But anytime I can call, because I'm not a good goose caller, anytime I can call in a Canadian goose, I'm very stoked, because, like, to get them to even look at me, I love that whack. Hello, Father. It's Tiny Tim. So I guess that's an older sister? Which makes me wonder, how long was Cratchit an apprentice before he actually got to be brought up to be a partner of Scrooge's? And Tiny Tim has such a great heart. Yeah, I never really saw the age, and this is quite a interesting deal for me right now. I'm catching things I'd never noticed before. The Christmas goose. Ooh, man, look at that. That skin is perfectly crisped. So, goose was cheaper than a turkey. Good to know. To the founder of the feast. I like how they like the nuances they do of, like, Scrooge trying to skirt, like, and being ridiculed there. Um, and the mom is definitely very fed up with how Scrooge treats Cratchit. I do like that Scrooge takes a kindness to Tim in this moment. The transformation of these Christmas spirits is super cool too. Because like if you notice, like the whole time, Christmas Present's beard is getting, grayer and stuff, and he's beginning to look older and stuff. What cow grunts and growls? Oh, that's so horrible. Okay, so what does a humbug actually mean? Because it, like, obviously it's like grr, I don't like it. But what does it mean? Deceptive or false talk or behavior. So it's a sham. It's not worth anything. It's no good. It was a hard candy. Also in Britain, it was flavored with peppermint. Interesting. A person or object that behaves in a deceptive or dishonest way, often as a hoax or in jest. Sorry about that. Ended up getting a Walmart delivery. Needed some more pellets and stuff for smoking, and so we made a small grocery order. That way I didn't have to get out, which actually kind of works out perfectly because it's already a bit later than what I thought it would be. So we're going to continue on. We are, just in case you kind of got messed up, we are at 59:20, and we are hitting play again right now. So, got the big workhouse, or the clock, the big clock behind him, almost as if it's Big Ben. What's under your skirt? Both. Look. So again, hinting at, greed with the ignorance and want of the children. And then, like, obviously, a year dies on December 31st. So, like, the significance of death here. Asylums back then had to have been insanely rough. Even like late 1950s, like 100 years later, still horrible. So I can only imagine what they were like back then. The depiction of like the skeleton laughing as like the body withers away is really, really cool too. So as we're getting into the last half hour, we gotta address something. We have our buddy Jim Weird Carey, who is a metalhead. There's been a lot of debate back and forth, a lot of rumors and stuff throughout the years where it was stated, no, he's not a fan. He doesn't like Napalm Death. No, he doesn't like Cannibal Corpse, yada, yada, yada. When in fact, it was him who got Cannibal Corpse the opportunity to be in Ace Ventura. And because like Metal Injection actually like published a story in 2009 talking about how he's not really a fan. And then come to find out later on, he actually is a fan. So they went back in the archives, edited the top of the thing, and was like, this is labeled as a rumor, because it turns out Jim Carrey actually is a metal fan that has been addressed recently, or and since then, or however they worded it. And so that was really interesting to see, because like I always thought, oh, well, he's not actually a fan, but then like you see where he's talking about Pantera and how like that made him feel, and then like they get to the hotel and who's behind them? The band Pantera. Which, if you think about it, because at first I was like, why would a up and coming band be in the same hotel as Jim Carrey, the comedian? Because like in my thoughts, it was okay that time period, because it would have been like early '90s. Jim Carrey would have been like really well off. But it depends on what part of the early '90s. Because if it's up and coming Pantera and if it's up and coming Jim Carrey, both going to the same area for their shows, more than likely, yeah, they could have been staying at the same hotel. Because like think about if you've ever watched like the VH1 story of Pantera, like Rex Brown falling asleep in the floor of the van, and like because it had no headlights, and him being the guy that like had to hold the wires together, and so like he'd be falling asleep, and like Phil would be like, car, and he'd wake up and put the wires together and stuff. So yeah, Jim Carrey is a metalhead, likes Pantera a lot, which I totally agree. Pantera is one of my favorite bands. The Christmas Spirit, like staying as a shadow this whole time, like and through this section, is super, super cool. And I love how like they have the Christmas Spirit stay silent. They do so many great. Like, I guess that was more of a Dickens thing than anything, but the way they depict everything is so great. Like the horse head coming out of the shadow right there, just the coolest. And then even the finger. And now, like, the horses of death, like, coming after him, and him not being able to run in the snow. Definitely a very, very cool scene. With, like, the concussion sound right there and whatnot. So, let's see. Let's pull up a few more facts here about... well, we'll go back to different celebrities who are metalheads here in a second. But let's go to... This movie's responsible for the term Merry Christmas. Or not movie, but book is responsible for the term Merry Christmas. So real Scrooges changed their ways. It wasn't just a theatrical impact that A Christmas Carol has had on the world, but also a financial one. Shortly after the book was published, there was a rise of charitable giving happening in Britain, and many believe this was due to how the story was making people feel. Dickens was transforming real-life Scrooges all over the UK. So, some very cool tidbits there. See. The first film of A Christmas Carol was called Marley's Ghost. It was a British film, short film, made back in 1901. It lasted only 6 minutes. 1852, on the date of when Dickens first performed it. I thought it was the same year, so my research was wrong earlier. And when I say my research was wrong, I mean I misread it. So I want to... a lot of Dickens' work was considered social commentaries for different things that they did. Dickens, whenever his biography came out by Michael Slater, it described the author thought of a Christmas carol as a way to help open the hearts of the prosperous and powerful towards the poor and powerless. Obviously, that is a very strong theme throughout this book and rings true in the movies as well. the tiny Scrooge is awesome right here, as it's being run down, like he's being run down by the horses. I think at this point, Death just wants him to die, or like the Christmas future. Be quite the ride, wouldn't it? Man, so like icicles can seriously hurt you. So like that just did not look fun. But this part does, where he's surfing the icicle. Whee! Falling with style for sure. I hope he didn't die of anything catching. That's so great. I didn't mean to be quiet for so long there in that moment, but there was stuff that needed to be heard, and I didn't want to bother it because like it's important, because like he's catching on to the fact that like Mrs. Dibbler was one of his maids, and now they're. She's so proud of like stealing from this dead man that was a jerk to everybody. That mouse is in for it. That's hilarious. And into the hand of death. It is your. And again, the Christmas future is pointing at the bed. Who shall it be? The long arm of the shadow. Only the shadow knows. Scrooge doesn't want to see it, but he gets it. But I think Christmas Future wants him to see it to really further drive that home. So people that owed him money, were super excited because, like, the next person that we owe money won't be so bad. This is probably the hardest part. So I looked it up, and what it could have been that Tiny Tim had was either like, judging by everything that historians and medical professionals have at their hands or whatever, that they could look at to decide what Tiny Tim had, because it's never clearly stated. It could have been polio, it could have been rickets, or it could have been tuberculosis. So it further goes on to say rickets is a disease caused by lack of vitamin D, calcium, or phosphate, which can lead to soft bones. In the 1800s, 60% of children in working-class London families had rickets. Tuberculosis, a prevalent disease in London in the late 1800s, that was often fatal and difficult to treat. Very true even here in the States. Like, think about Doc Holliday, one of the most prevalent people who, like, in cinema and lore and whatnot else, that had tuberculosis. He moved out to the Old West to the West at his time. It wasn't old then. He moved out to the West then to have a better, like, a drier climate to help with his tuberculosis. Polio, a disease that caused paralysis and often associated with children during the epidemic that lasted from the 1840s to the 1950s, so 110 years. However, polio was thought to be incurable, so it's unlikely to be the cause of Tiny Tim's illness. Because it does seem like he gets better. Oh, there's one more. Renal tubular acidosis, a disorder that can cause growth failure, muscle weakness, and periodic paralysis. Hang on. Yeah. Sorry about that. Charles Dickens never specifies Tiny Tim's diagnosis, instead describing a collection of vague symptoms. However, some say that Dickens' description of 1800s ailments are often very accurate. Tiny Tim may have been based on two real people in Dickens' life: his nephew, who died of tuberculosis, and son of a friend who was disabled. And now we are to the climactic scene. the scene that I think everybody knows so well. As the snow blows away. No, it doesn't. I thought it did. He's asking, like, can it be changed? Am I that man who lay upon the bed? Born February 7th, 1786. Died Christmas Day. He's asking to be like for an opportunity to change. Here it comes. So, okay, how old was Scrooge in this? So let's do it the math way. So say 1843 minus 1786, 10 years after the Revolution too, by the way. He would have been 57 during these visits by the spirits. I love the red glow around the casket of like fire. We won't say where. You already know. And this is the cool thing is like it has like country-ish elements to it. It's got some metal elements. Like you could have some like shredding guitar right now, like. But there's also like that home time family Christmas. I love like the like black gem look to the eyes of the future spirit. I love the transformation of the root to the spirit's finger too. That's so cool. As he's falling towards the coffin. So, since we were talking metalheads and stuff earlier, 25 awesome celebrity metalheads. This was done by Loudwire almost a year ago. So Jim Carrey, one of the very first ones that's mentioned on the list by Loudwire. And now we have Scrooge awakened upside down by his bed curtains. Okay. Demi Lovato, being a fan of Job for a Cowboy and Bring Me to the Horizon. Interesting. Margot Robbie, very much a self-professed metalhead, being a fan of bands like Silverstein, Bullet for My Valentine, and Slipknot. Stephen King, makes sense. Obviously, fan of the older bands like Sabbath, Motorhead, Metallica, Judas Priest, Anthrax, AC/DC, Guns N' Roses. Triple H has been named Metalhead Ambassador before. So, like, very, very much a metalhead, as we know. Nick Cage. I don't know who that person is. Post Malone. Dude loves everything, so it's not a surprise. I did not know he's covered Nothing Else Matters by Metallica. I'm going to have to find that. Sir Christopher Lee. So appropriate that he would come up on this list. That dude was awesome. Played Count Dooku from England. Was the dude that was actually like who 007 was pretty much based off of. Just an absolutely awesome guy. Even made some of his own metal Christmas carols. So definitely have to I love this. Mrs. Dibbler's scared. Okay, so what does barmy mean? I'm curious. Barmy definition. Crazy. You're mad. Extremely foolish. So, makes sense for the context that it was just used in. That is a massive bird. I love this because, you know, at the beginning of the movie, he called them delinquents, and what's he do? He goes out there and he sketches. Woo! Woo! Took a spill. I forgot about that. The carolers being all merry. See if they continue it. Aw. Aw. This is a cool moment. He's totally thrown off guard. I'm gonna have to start saying I'm sorry that way. Allow me to ask your pardon. Like, forgive me, please. I love that. Like, obviously, like the idea of the charity and stuff behind this is so good. Such a cool movie because it has like so many cool moments. Like, I don't know. For the longest time, I looked past the charity part because, like, obviously, it's cool to see like the man renewed and stuff. I love how thrown off the carolers are. They're like, "What is happening?" It's such a the transformation. Obviously, is like the key point. Uh, it's just awesome. And then here we are, getting ready to make things right with the nephew, and I think it's so awesome. Uh, how like all this plays out. And the thing that he saw from Christmas present. It's such a like the way that that moment was depicted is so cool. I've come to dinner if you'll have me, and like everybody like rushes and like to show him like kindness. Like over in England, they don't have Thanksgiving, so like this is their really really big meal. They don't get two of them a year like we do. So that's something that just crossed my mind too as like this part's wrapping up. The final touches on like this story are so good. It's interesting to contemplate the different things here. And so like this is the day after Christmas, so like Boxing Day. I love how he laughs. A full 16 minutes late. What? I'm about to raise your salary. I guess he only said humbug like 3 or 4 times in this adaptation, so he didn't really say it too like very much. He's definitely, I feel like after the change, he said Merry Christmas way more often than he said humbug. So that's kind of interesting too. Go buy more coal. We're gonna warm it up in here. It's gonna actually be comfortable. What just happened? Okay, so I know wassail is like the drink. So like, what is wassailing? Is it like merriment? Is it caroling? Okay, so like it's the drink, obviously, but then plentiful amounts. Oh, so I didn't know it had alcohol in the summer versions of it. Uh, Another form of like caroling. Okay, kind of makes sense. So it's like a mulled cider too. I never really like looked too much into it. Okay. Wonder if you can make it. I'm sure you can make like a not, because like Silver Dollar City sold it at one point. And I love the wrapping up of like Tiny Tim, and like he kept it all the rest of, like he kept Christmas all the rest of his life, and all that stuff. So we are reaching the end of our episode. Thank you so much for hanging out and doing a watch along with me. I can't believe we just did a watch along. That was pretty cool. I've been wanting to do one for a while, like I had said, and so I had a lot of fun. Hopefully I did a good job as a watch-alonger. And thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We are going to catch you Friday on the next episode of the Tin Roof Podcast. No, I just finished.